Alright guys, I'm back again. This time I am cutting Jez. Jez plays for Brisbane Roar, so he's a professional football player. So he's quite natural being in front of the camera, which is good. Jez's hair, he's kind of had it probably double the length of this in the past. We're trying to work on something which obviously he doesn't have to tie up when he's playing. But also it's kind of, he's still got that waviness. You can see in his hair, he's got that natural texture as well. We're just kind of having a conversation at the moment about how we should go about how he wants to style it. He wears it very natural. So I need to make sure that I'm cutting this to wear, as I like to do with a lot of my cuts as well. So you'll notice I'm just combing out the hair, going through the back of the head, and then what I'll do is section off my areas. So you can see just sectioning off the side of the hair there to the back of the head. What I'm going to do with Jez's hair, I am actually going to chuck in square layers throughout his whole hair. So he kind of likes that George Michael Wham look with the plenty of volume. So this is what we're trying to create here. He's actually showing me the picture at the moment, which is brilliant. But yeah, we're just trying to create a lot more volume for him without having to grow his hair longer. His hair's pretty thick as well, as you'll notice. So I'm just clipping out the sides of the hair so I can just concentrate purely on my section. The key thing I like to do, especially with hair like this, is make it as damp as possible. You'll notice I sprayed Jez's hair down quite a lot, just to make sure that I can get that comb through it and make sure that I'm getting nice clean sections as well. So Jez is quite happy with the length of his hair on the back. We've gone for more of a mullety look in the past, but then also what tends to happen when Jez's hair grows out, it can become kind of like that bob shape as well, because that's the way his hair wants to sit when he's had previous haircuts. So you'll see I'm just going to take my first section out here. We noticed that there was quite a bit of bulk throughout the hair. Jez was happy with the length kind of on the top of the back of his head, so we've made sure that we've kind of kept that length. Now what I'm doing here is my square layers. I'm just picking out that section from the middle of the head and actually using that length as my guide. You'll see that also there was just that little bit of bulk at the bottom of the head. Just making sure that when I'm going through with that section that I'm following all the way through. As I mentioned, Jez doesn't want to actually take off any length, so we're just making sure that these layers all match up in the back and they're all square, just to add that volume to Jez's hair. You'll notice I'm not taking off too much, but I'm just going to that length which he's happy with and making sure that everything is square off that length. So you'll notice my cutting position doesn't change. I'm making sure that my fingers are nice and square, the tension on the head and the actual hair is square as well. I don't want that hair to drop. If that hair drops, I'm going to start creating graduation instead of square layers. As you can see, I look a little bit awkward here on the angle. This is purely to try and get the shot for you guys, what you want to be doing with any hair like this, especially longer hair, which I've also got a video of in my profile. Is just making sure that you can see your fingers are nice and square, your chest is square, and you're cutting at that square angle. That will basically make sure that your layers are as square as possible, which is obviously only going to improve your haircuts. So you can see here I'm just working around the head, that full back section, so kind of literally just behind the ear on each side. I am pulling all of those sections back square, so that full back section of Jez's head, I know now I've done complete square layers on. So you'll see me do probably my last section here, pulling it back. I'm not over directing the hair, I'm pulling that completely square to the head. You can really tell the difference here when I actually dry the hair as well, which is at the end of this video, and you can really see those square layers as well. So I'm just making sure that I've got all of my sections here, and then I'll move on to the sides. Alright, so time to section the hair again. So what I'm doing this time with Jez, I'm sectioning off the top of the head because I want to work on my square layers on the side of his head. Just making sure that I clip everything up. You'll see the section that I take is actually to the hairline, so the point of the hairline. Just clip that up and out of the way for yourself so it's a nice clean section on the sides. Alright, so same thing. I'm going to get myself a section, the width of the comb. Now what I've done, I've used the length from the back of the head and taken that as my guide as well when I come into the side. Again, because this is the look that Jez is looking for, I'm doing square layers throughout. You can see I'm trying to keep my chest nice and high there and square with where I'm cutting, and then I'll work my way around. Any length is just being cut off there as well. Normally we used to do tapers on Jez's hair as well, which suited this style perfectly, but Jez is just trying to grow out those sides as well. So this is the trickier side, especially when I'm trying to do video for you guys. You can see this is always tricky because obviously you can't rest your hands in the square position like you would. So you've kind of got to be a little bit flexible there, and you've got to pick a target on the wall behind you. So I picked a target on the window behind Jez, and I'm just making sure that my cutting line, my chest, my scissors and everything are as square as possible to keep on creating those square layers. Alright, fantastic. So I'm happy with those square layers on the side. Now I'm going to drop down the top of the head and just comb that through. Now I'm going to do my square layers throughout the top of the hair. This is where I'm laughing because I've just realised that I've left my water bottle in front of the video the whole time, which is fantastic. So yeah, again, just spraying down the head, making sure that it is as damp as possible. This can be a little bit tricky, especially on longer hair. You don't want to try and get the hair in the client's face as well. So you can see I'm kind of just combing it to the side first. So now that I'm happy that the hair is damp enough for me to cut, I'm going to comb everything back, because this is the way we're actually going to style Jez's hair as well. And I'm going to take that first section throughout the middle of the hair again. So that's going to be my guide the whole way through this haircut, is literally that guide through the middle of the head. Now this would be if I was going for shorter styles or longer styles, whatever. If I'm doing square layers on the top of somebody's head, this is exactly the process which I'm gonna follow. Again, the section we're gonna aim for is probably about a comb width apart. Once you have sectioned that hair, you can just move any of the hair which you're not going to cut the guide into, just to the sides. This should almost be like a center parting, but you've actually left a guideline throughout the middle of the head as well. You can see I'm just checking the mirror there for that center guide. Now I'll bring the guide up, and this is where you can kind of see how much length you want to take off. It's a good one to just double check. As you can see, Jez is pretty confident in my abilities and just gone cut whatever you want. But I like to make sure that that length obviously is going to be alright for him, especially playing football. We don't want anything dangling in his eyes when he's trying to kick a ball or dribbling or anything like that. So we want to make sure that we've got the correct length. So I've come through here and I'm slightly point cutting it. I am a big fan of point cutting, but especially on hair like this, it does get to the point where there is so much texture in it that point cutting is really not going to make much of a difference. The only reason why I am point cutting this is I tend to like to point cut just to take a little bit of weight out as well. So instead of me having to come through and go, oh, right now I've got to take weight out, I'm actually doing that by point cutting throughout the hair. So you'll see I've followed it back literally into my section from the back as well. So I've got my whole back section which I've already square layered. So then my last cutting guide on the top of the head, I'm then gonna match up with the back of the head as well, so they don't look like three completely different haircuts in the same one. So this section I've just picked is my next section next to the guide. So now I'm just using the guide as my cutting line, and I'm just going to make sure that all of the hair goes to that cutting line. Okay, so you'll see that I don't move in position either when I'm actually cutting the top of the head, because I'm looking for that consistency. I don't want to be spinning around the head or anything like that. I like to stay in the same place when I'm cutting hair, whether that be if I'm fading or whatnot. I'll pick a certain spot in the shop where I'm like, okay, cool, this is exactly where I want to fade from, and I'll make sure that I can move the client in that direction, that I'm in the same place. So same as my cutting, I like to make sure that when I'm cutting the top of the head that I'm in the same place. So we're happy with this length here. Again, I'm just doing a bit of a jump through it, which is not a technical term, but a lot of people seem to do. I'm just going to chuck in some sea salt spray on Jez's hair. Believe it or not, I am the first person who Jez has ever let me cut his hair. So he always used to just get his mum to cut his hair when he was younger. And yeah, I've managed to secure that contract with Jez. So he's put a lot of faith in me, and we've had numerous haircuts, which you'll be able to see on my Instagram as well. But yes, I love cutting Jez's hair. He's got some quality hair and he's very on style as well. So it's great to be able to create some new looks for Jez, and he's more than happy to go with it. So what I'm using here, I've got my Dyson with me, but I've actually got the mini diffuser attachment. So this is probably my favorite attachment with the Dyson. So basically what it does is, it's kind of exactly the same thing as a diffuser, but it spreads the air more, obviously, because it's a lot smaller than the bigger diffusers. Now I could come through and put a diffuser all over Jez's hair, but I just think it would create too much volume in his hair. I like when it is quite tight to his head, especially as we've gone that shorter length. So yeah, you'll just see me coming through. Again, I'm not using a brush. I want to use my hands because I want to get that texture throughout it. And you'll start to see it getting a bit of shape now as I'm coming through with my Dyson. Cool, so it's definitely starting to get a bit of shape at the moment. You'll see the back. You can see all of that layering which we've created, which is fantastic. This is exactly what Jez wants, is that multi-layered look. Again, this is just me performing square layers. It's nothing flash. I am literally just doing square layers in the back of the head. This is such an underrated cutting technique, I think. People seem to think with the mullets they start to go on a bit of a tangent. Again, with all of my mullets I stick to square layering because I know I can add that texture through it as well. Alright, so you can see it's really starting to get shape now. It's kind of setting into place due to us using our sea salt spray. It is a little bit grippy, which I like my sea salt spray to be. I don't like it to be too grippy, but yeah, it's nice that I can be able to actually style the hair into place by just using sea salt spray. Of course, now the fun part, just clearing up Jez's neck. Again, I think a very underrated thing to do with people with mullets. It seems to be a lot of people just tend to leave the hair on the neck with mullets because they're just like, it'll get covered. But I think I will do a separate video on this as well. The difference between a mullet when it has the hair on the neck and then a mullet without the hair on the neck, I think it just looks so much cleaner and sharper. And again, I wouldn't classify Jez's as a mullet, but I think anybody who wants that kind of feature piece to be the back of their hair as well, I think that's a key thing to do. Awesome, thank you for listening to me, guys. I hope you enjoyed my cut, and yeah, look forward to showing you more of my cuts soon.